Welcome to the Bookworm Duo, where we explore a variety of books. Let's get started. Today, we are embarking on a deep dive into a creative life, tracing the full chronology of one of the world's most influential writers. We're drawing directly from excerpts of their memoir, Book of Lives, a memoir of sorts.
Exactly.
And we're not just, listing achievements, we're hunting for those strange, pivotal moments that became the raw material for their iconic fiction.
That is precisely our mission today. We're acting as your expert guides to this source material, tracing the precise, often incredibly surprising, and frequently humorous events that shaped this artistic vision.
Right.
And the core theme that really emerges is how a childhood rooted in nature, some very odd family lore, and this early exposure to, well, to human cruelty surprisingly resulted in such a unique voice.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning, the roots, the lore, all the way back in the early 1900s. The family foundations are in Nova Scotia.
Mm-hmm.
The parents were born around 1906, 1909, which means they hit the job market during the absolute worst of the Great Depression. And you can feel that tension immediately in the narrative.
You really can. You have the writer's mother, who was fiercely ambitious, but her autocratic father saw her as a flibbertigibbet and just refused her access to university.
Wow.
Now, compare that to her twin sister, Kay, who went to the University of Toronto and became the first woman to earn an MA in history there. So that contrast, between denied potential and academic success, it clearly established a lifelong sensitivity to inequality.
I found the specific family anecdotes just brilliant. On one hand, you have this absurdly dark childhood rhyme.
Dr. Kill 'em, skin 'em, and eat 'em.
Yes, which the mother just sort of airily dismissed. But then on the other hand, you have the father, a serious scientist, giving his children this bizarre calculation question.
The fruit fly question. How long would it take two fruit flies reproducing unchecked to cover the entire Earth to a depth of 2 miles?
It just creates this fascinating environment where, intellectual curiosity is paired with the dark, almost morbid sense of humor.
It really does. And we learned that the grandmother's 19th century farm life, the slow rhythm of churning butter, cooking on a massive wood-burning range, that was the direct inspiration for the atmosphere in Alias Grace. The 1800s were still alive in those practices.
And before they knew any kind of suburban life, they were deep in the wilderness. Every spring, that annual journey to the Quebec wilderness near Temiskaming.
Logging country. And this exposure to the boreal forest was so formative it taught survival, resourcefulness. The father was a self-taught engineer. He built their house, their rowboat.
And there's that indelible image of him constantly working on the car, changing those poor quality tires during the war years because all the good rubber went to the war effort.
With legs sticking out from under a jacked-up car. It was sort of an image of parental competence and tenacity.
Okay, so here's a moment that on the surface seems almost trivial, but it ends up defining a theme for her entire career. Ottawa, 1941. She gets hit in the left eye by a chunk of ice.
A chunk of ice that a boy had thrown, aiming for her brother. And the psychological takeaway here is fascinating. The boy apologized, saying, "I meant to hit Harold."
Right.
And this created this powerful realization that sometimes hostility and rage intended for a different target. They just land on you, the bystander. It led to a physical flinch, this lifelong aversion to all white flying objects.
Snowballs, tennis balls.
Anything. But it also gave her this crucial insight into arbitrary victimization and deflected violence, which becomes, a key element in her political fiction.
That's a huge leap, connecting that physical moment to a whole political worldview. A few years later, after the move to Sault Ste. Marie, the lack of kindergarten led to dance classes,
where she internalized this unique sense of permission. She wasn't told an activity was forbidden because she was a girl. If she couldn't do something, it was because she was too young.
And that framing seems to have encouraged this intellectual daring.
Oh, absolutely. She and her brother, free from too much structure, started a secret poison project under a cabin. They mixed every inedible berry they could find. And yes, the brother contributed urine to the concoction.
Of course. And this dark, playful curiosity later appeared in a piece called Making Poison.
And their imaginative worlds were just as compelling. They built Bunnyland.
Bunnyland, populated by sophisticated rabbits with human bodies and clothes.
Orbiting a satellite made entirely of blueberries attached by a chain.
Which is practical, if you think about it. Always a snack available.
It really shows a mind that just naturally constructs these elaborate, detailed, alternate worlds. That is the definition of a novelist.
So moving into the mid-1940s, the innocence starts to fade a bit. The family relocates to Pointe-des-Chênes on Lake Superior, And the writer enters what she calls the mean girls phase.
And this is where she encounters deliberate social malice. Two girls, Sandra and Muriel. They decide the writer is a monster who needs correction.
It was a sustained campaign.
A sustained conscious campaign of psychological manipulation. We call it gaslighting now, long before the term was common. She realized she'd been cast as the villain in someone else's reform story.
And nothing she did would ever make her good enough.
Exactly. So the response to that was to develop this fierce inner life, this sharp intellect. She won a Bible at Sunday school for memorizing Psalms.
And then later submitted this award-winning illustrated temperance essay.
With a very specific and very practical thesis. Drinking causes enlarged capillaries in your nose, which leads directly to freezing to death in the snow.
It just shows her early ability to take a complex social problem and distill it into this clear, compelling, if slightly skewed narrative.
And that analytical skill soon met a new environment when the family moved to Toronto. She spent time at the U of T Zoology Building, which sounds like a cabinet of curiosities.
Right. Mice, pickled snakes, toxic African cockroaches.
And that macabre interest extended to the Royal Ontario Museum. She spent countless hours with the mummies, an experience that directly influenced life before man.
But the light relief, again, comes from the animal kingdom.
The story of Perky the cat is just legendary.
The neighbor's tea party.
Yes, a refined tea party with stuffed dates. And Perky, trying to show affection, deposits a well-licked dead mouse directly onto the date plate.
Because it resembled the dates. The size, the damp, slippery texture. Someone almost ate it.
It's the perfect illustration of that clash between polite human expectation and unexpected animal chaos.
High school brought its own kind of eccentricity. She was placed in the grade 10 brain class at Leaside High, and while other girls focused on fashion, she channeled her energy into a dirndl skirt, hand-printed with trilobites.
That's the key detail. A prehistoric fossil, an extinct marine arthropod. It just signaled her intellectual distance and a fascination with deep-time old structures, which is exactly what she dissects in her fiction.
And that same curiosity landed her on television on a show called Pet Corner.
With her praying mantis named Lenore, after the rare and radiant maiden in Poe's poem, of course.
Of course. The journey continues to Victoria College, U of T, and then Harvard, where she lived in the Founder's House graduate residence.
Which she notes was unofficially reserved for intellectual misfits.
The Southerners, the New York Jews, those of atypical biological beliefs, the drug-addled, the Canadians.
It was a crucible of unconventional thinkers. But more critically, her studies under Perry Miller, the world expert on Puritan theocracy, that provided the deep foundations for The Handmaid's Tale.
Learning about the intolerance inherent in the Puritan foundations of the U.S.
It gave her the necessary historical and political framework for Gilead.
And her first published short story, The War in the Bathroom, came directly from just pure observation.
Yeah, this mysterious, agonizing vocal duet she heard through the thin walls of her rooming house, a high-pitched whine and a lower mutter. She never solved the drama.
So she took that unresolved mystery and built a story around it.
Proving that raw observation and unanswered questions are the best material a writer can possibly have.
That sense of unresolved mystery would soon be applied to her first foray into the professional world. A short stint at Canadian Fax Market Research in the early 1960s.
She was checking the interviewers' stories, and the tales of door-to-door woe were just incredible. The hostile dog, the dead fly in the raisin bran, the drunken husband.
And her own lesson was so pragmatic. Don't go in, stay at the threshold, never turn your back.
That entire experience, just full of suburban absurdity and underlying threat, became the basis for The Edible Woman.
Public recognition arrives when she wins the Governor General's Award for the Circle Game in 1967.
And the black-tie dinner that followed resulted in this beautiful moment of accidental public sentiment.
Because she was crying.
Well, it looked like she was crying. She was actually struggling immensely with new contact lenses, and tears were just streaming down her face.
And the two gentlemen sitting next to her.
Two distinguished francophone gentlemen just completely mistook her physical agony for deep, profound emotion, patting her on the back kindly. It's a perfect illustration of how public perception rarely matches internal reality.
That moment happened right before a huge personal turn. Her first marriage to Jim Polk was quick and peculiar.
Officiated by an elderly Chinese man wearing a bolo tie and a buffalo skull slide, with her then very nice boyfriend on his motorcycle present.
It's just an incredible scene.
And it sets the stage for the most significant partnership of her life. Graham Gibson. We had to get his prequel. He was a Leo with Scorpio rising.
Meaning sunny and energetic, but with a complex, intense undercurrent.
And his childhood absolutely matched that. At age 3, he manages to operate a ship's elevator all by himself, sending frantic adults running up and down the stairs trying to catch him. Evasion of restriction.
A lifelong motif. And he suffered from lifelong claustrophobia.
He was a character championing the absurd. Even then, when his parents decided to put down their 2 sick Cocker Spaniels, Peter and Wendy, young Graham seriously petitioned them to at least cut off the heads and have them stuffed.
Founting by the fireplace. And the parents somehow kept straight faces and promised to consider it.
But the true highlight of his mischievous genius has to be the grade 11 scam.
The dentist note.
Right. He needed a perpetual excuse from class, so he had his friend rewrite his mother's dentist note. That friend's handwriting then became the established, recognized parental hand for all future school excuses.
It's brilliant. Just a brilliant exercise in bureaucratic con artistry.
So after they met at dinner parties, her first marriage dissolved. And what's important here is the writer's reflection on how she was perceived by others.
As the Wendy from Peter Pan figure.
Exactly. Expected to make a cozy, static home for the adventuring men. She realized quickly, though, that she was a coop flyer, too.
So by the 1970s, the partnership with Graham leads to farm life. But it started unconventionally.
Very. Graham actually maneuvered his first wife, Shirley, into kicking him out, leading to his move to the Beaton farmhouse. Shirley was already referring to the situation as Graham and his harem.
And the farmhouse itself was delightfully gothic. It was haunted.
By a ghost. A sad woman in a long blue dress. A fact later confirmed by subsequent owners. Much to Graham's delight, he just adored anything unexplained.
Their whole farming venture was wonderfully absurd. They relied on the first-time farmer's guide, but still
had issues like pigs and cows getting hilariously drunk on fermented apples and pears that had fallen from the trees.
And the death of the rooster. I mean, that's an image that just refuses to fade.
They took the deceased fowl to the vet, and the diagnosis came back. The rooster had died of rage.
An explosion of poultry passion.
Naturally, they proceeded to cook it. Made cockaliki, waste not, want not.
While managing this absurd farm, Graham's energy went into tireless activism, setting up the Writers' Union of Canada.
And the founding conference gave us peak 70s literary antics. The key entertainment was the Farley Mowat Dancers skit.
A group of short female writers, including the author, wearing fur, snowshoes, and beards.
Performing a Highland fling that culminated in a kilt flip, revealing F-A-R-L-E-Y spelled out across their backsides. It's that perfect blend of serious literary intent and just rebellious, unbridled humor.
Then, in the midst of all this, pregnancy. 9 months pregnant, she was bird watching at Point Palais.
And the birth of their daughter, Eleanor Jess, meaning shining light, was equally characteristic. During labor, she was reading Agatha Christie and regretting the lamb chops she'd eaten for lunch.
Having decided to forego the anesthetic.
But the birth led to a critical realization born of necessity. When Jess was only 5 months old, Finn, the wolfhound, bit Graham's head, narrowly missing his jugular.
Lying there on a far-off farm.
The author realized, that's it, I'm learning to drive. She became competent because she needed to be able to get victims to the hospital herself.
That necessity drove her professional structure, too. To handle the business side, she incorporated O.W. Toad Ltd.
On the advice of her accountant, Uncle Harry, a dapper, three-piece suited Canadian Anglophile. O.W. Toad, of course, being a brilliant anagram of her last name.
And now we get to the genesis of The Handmaid's Tale. It was written in the mid-1980s, started in Berlin, and finished in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, on a rented German typewriter.
The crucial political influence came from a 1984 cultural exchange trip to Czechoslovakia. The surveillance was so thick the hotel bellboy had to signal that the chandelier was bugged.
And he offered to change currency on the sly.
And she was reminded that Kafka's work, with its documentation of senseless brutality and arbitrary punishment, had been suppressed by the communist regime precisely because it was too close for comfort.
That palpable atmosphere of fear and surveillance fed directly into Gilead.
Directly. So fast forward to the 1990s and later triumphs. The research for Alias Grace was meticulous. She found conflicting accounts of grace marks.
Blonde versus redhead, tall versus short.
And that's the genius of her approach. She decided to write a book that accommodated the ambiguity, rather than trying to solve the mystery. She understands that history is often a series of conflicting narratives.
But not all narratives were well received. Following a terrible, shaming review for The Blind Assassin in the New York Times, she had a classic internal reaction.
She invoked a classic Graham Gibsonism, silently thinking, piss up a rope, wanker.
And the subsequent Booker win provided the necessary vindication.
It did. And her later work, the Mad Adam trilogy, was inspired by a trip to Australia, where a bush guide gave this terrifyingly practical advice about crocodiles.
Never brush your teeth at the same spot beside the river twice.
Or the crocodile will tenderize you before eating you. And that stark encounter with raw nature, combined with contemplating what humans truly need once everything is removed, that provided the foundation for Oryx and Crake.
This leads us to the final, poignant chapter of the memoir, Legacy and Loss. She wrote the Testaments as a kind of refuge during Graham's noticeable decline due to dementia.
But even in the face of that decline, his unique humor remained. When Graham was admitted to the hospital after a fall, the doctor expressed surprise at the dementia diagnosis.
And Graham replied with perfect timing, "Yes, I was surprised myself."
His final acts are so deeply moving. Despite his own cognitive difficulties, when their son had a stroke, Graham made the trip to the hospital, donned a hazmat suit, and sat by his son's bedside, singing all the old children's songs.
Wow. It's just a powerful illustration of unconditional love surviving the loss of memory.
And their partnership endured until the absolute end. That difficult trip to Italy and England for the Testaments launch, where the publishers had to arrange hospital amenities just so she wouldn't have to leave him.
The entire narrative is a testament to the fact that even as life becomes fragile, connection remains. Graham's final philosophical bird observation, it just summarizes his wisdom perfectly.
I no longer know the names of the birds, but then they don't know my name either.
And that brings us to the ultimate reflection, the metaphor of the paper boat.
Life is fleeting, it's full of shadows, but the work, the paper boat, is the flimsy vehicle that writers continue to sail on. And the true nugget of knowledge here is that a life rich in detail, mean girls, exploding roosters, political paranoia, is the essential material for an engaged, creative existence.
So think about your own life, you, the listener. What small, strange, hilarious, or frustrating experience from your own life is actually the key foundation for your own story. You now have the full chronology of this remarkable life. Thanks for joining us. Subscribe for more bookish adventures and hit that like button if you enjoyed the ride. Don't forget to share the knowledge, spread the word.